when I have someone doing this with me. It's like the Kira show with guests. Yeah. And Taryn is co-hosting this with me from the comfort of her bed because she's had a knee op, knee op procedure. So she is leg up.
Literally leg up.
Which is ironic because today we're talking about movement therapy and dance therapy with Faine Bisset from Dance Therapy South Africa. But I'll get onto that now. Taryn.
Yes.
You and I love dancing. We've had
yeah, but I don't think it's the kind of dance that potentially Faine does, but who knows? But yeah, we do.
Expression through movement, which we've done a little razzle night out.
Yeah.
Faine Bisset is in the waiting room. And
I'm excited to listen to this.
Yes. So she's actually she's a qualified hypnotherapist.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And
I did actually see that. Yeah.
Yeah. And also a psychologist and everything else. But so she's combined her therapy work with dance and movement to help people unlock their trapped emotions or, trauma, all the things that caused us to detach ourselves with ourselves. Sorry, I'm going to leave her to define this properly.
Yeah.
Bring it in. But I think it's awesome because I'm really bad with not expressing myself, but my actual body, or loving my body and stuff has been a real thing with me. I'm very disassociated with my actual body. I'm good with my feelings now. I'm owning my feelings, but getting my body to recognize that is not great. So Faine, we need you to help us. So I'm bringing you in here. It's there she is.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hello everybody. Good, and you?
Good. I was just telling Taryn, I was trying to explain, I think I was trying to give a very unsolicited definition of what it is you do, combining therapy work with movement and dance, but you would probably hate the explanation I gave. So please give the proper version.
Well, you pretty much summed it up. You can't get it wrong. It's all about helping people to heal themselves and to move through and overcome their traumas and challenges through using different techniques, including movement and dance. And that's from my personal background. So you pretty much got it right.
Oh, good. So you are a dancer.
Yes, I have been a dancer for most of my life, on and off, different styles, different studios. I've kind of been a little bit all over the place with dance, and I keep finding myself coming back to it every couple of years. I'll go to a studio for a few years and then take a bit of a break, and then I find myself being pulled back to some form of dance again. So it definitely is in my DNA at some level.
And is so dance therapy. Am I using the right terminology here?
So yeah, in its broadest terms, it's a form of dance therapy.
Okay.
It's not the same style of dance therapy that you'll find overseas, because it's come through my personal experiences and my studies and that kind of stuff. I have my own form, my own style. You can't study dance therapy in South Africa. But you can register as a dance therapist with the HSPCA if you have studied overseas. My background is different to that. So I'm not a dance therapist, but I do offer a form of dance and movement therapy in my own way, in my own form, yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So then I think what I'm trying to get at is that if we're going to join one of your sessions, it's not going to be like a full-on dance class. Because I've tried that and it's great. I'd love to be able to dance that contemporary dance. I think it's great. I love watching it. But Yeah. The times that I think I'd be good at it has for the better part of me been on nights out at, what was it called? Tiger back in the day. And infused by beverages of alcoholic content in those days. And
Yeah.
I don't think, and also in the shower sometimes, but
Yeah.
what I mean is that it's not necessarily, sophisticated professional sort of dancing. It's more about movement, right?
Exactly. I'm sure those nights in Tiger were very therapeutic in some form.
Yeah, absolutely. No, come on, absolutely. Yeah, they were. There's nothing like a good dance.
Exactly, right?
Moving swiftly along.
Yeah, and that's where people kind of get it wrong. I have had a few clients or potential clients phoning in to find out about it, and they're the one thing they say is that the only time they can dance is once they've had some tequila. So I kind of go with it, and I'll say that's fine. I can organize something. But it's for everybody. So it's not a dance class. It's individual sessions, and the movement and dance side of things is to help process emotions. So it's not the main part of the session, but it facilitates the healing process. And so it happens to, it is on the level of the person that I'm with at the time. So if they've never before, or if they have concerns with self-confidence or being watched, then I don't want them to be focusing on me watching them. I want them to be movement to process the emotions that they're trying to process. So it depends on the client. Sometimes it'll be free movement. Sometimes it'll be very simple, repetitive choreography that they can follow, so that they don't feel like they're being watched, or they don't feel, I don't want to add elements of insecurity to a session where I'm trying to help them overcome something like that.
I think that would have been my next question, because I know that the insecurity in myself, because I've always, I don't know how many people know this about me. I know one or two do. I've always wanted to learn dancing, like samba, and I have a friend that dances in like competitions, and her confidence is just incredible. And she said, it comes and develops over time. But I said, I cannot, it's strange. I can maybe be loud and I can be crazy on a night out, which is very different. But when it comes to something like that, that would have been my question. Like, how would someone like me, who is so insecure with their body and their movement and everything, how do you how is it an immediate movement in body, or their sessions before? Is it incorporated from the start? Because I know for me that would be my concern. I'd be like, but I'm too shy to do this. Like, I'm too shy to express and open up.
Yeah, that is a common concern that people have with this form of therapy. And so the way that I run a session is that we'll start off with the talk side of therapy, where we'll discuss what the issues are that you're coming in for, where it started, what you're wanting to gain from the sessions. And then from there, we move through a process that moves you through from your mind, through the emotions and into the body. So you can locate where those emotions are stored in your body. And that's what a lot of people don't realize, is that things like emotions and traumas and stress, anxiety, all those challenges that we face aren't just on our conscious minds. They're deep down in our subconscious minds and are stored within our bodies. So as much as we're trying to talk through them and to overcome them from a level of talk, we're needing to release them from our bodies as much as from our minds. So it's taking us into our bodies to release from that level. And so it's not an intimidating form of therapy, because it is individual. It's not a class where other people could be watching, or, it's a therapeutic setting. So there's non-judgment. It's very much confidential, obviously, but it's on the level of the person I'm with. So if you're coming in with insecurities, I'm not going to put on music and say dance. That's not the way.
These are obviously one-on-one sessions. They're not. These aren't group things. Or do you do group sessions as well?
I have done some workshops in the past. I prefer doing one-on-one, and that's my main focus is individual sessions, so that we can.
Yeah.
I wonder if so I've lined up the one of the videos that you guys have online with Tanith, which I think is quite a nice way to outline exactly what you're talking about, storing your those trapped emotions, and how our bodies how we need to unlock that in order to be freed of those things through movement. And I'm going to try the screen share so that we can show people quickly, if you guys don't mind. I know you've both seen it, but others have not. And sometimes the screen share thing is temperamental. So Karen, just WhatsApp me if this isn't working.
No problem.
Thanks.
Okay.
I hate being out of control. I use food to feel in control. That really freaks me out. I've decided to try dance therapy to get to the core of why I overeat and why I therefore overeat. Dance therapy is a form of therapy which combines talk therapy and dance that helps people to process and release emotions that are stored in their body. And we focus on what the issues really are and where the issues came from. Once that's processed and released from the body, their perspectives about that situation, person, or event will change, and they'll be able to live the life that they want to live. Food for me is not just for comfort, it's also to help me feel more in control. Recently, I have lost control of the fact that I now don't have a marriage anymore. Normally, I would then probably go and eat. We locate where they have stored the emotion in their body. When we're looking at the link between the mind, body, and emotions, the person who is overweight has disconnected from their body. There might be at some point a time when they have formed a relationship with food which has caused them to gain weight. It can be a traumatic experience, but it doesn't always have to be a big event. My parents decided to move to a really remote area. When I arrived at the new school, I was teased about my weight. When I finished school, I went straight over to the UK with my now ex-husband. After the 2 years were up, we had to come home. I didn't want to. I wanted to stay in the UK. My weight really started going up and I was living at home again. My independence was taken away from me. Often when we look at people who are overweight, they've had control of some form taken away from them. That loss can trigger the way that they view their body as well as the way that they use food to gain that control back. I think my mood is improving. I'm looking forward to being able to do new things, to trying new things and doing them with my daughter, to having fun. I've reached my first milestone and I've actually whizzed past it. I have lost 11.4 kilos to date and I'm feeling awesome. Looking back, I can't believe that I've already lost 11 kilos. I'm almost a quarter of a way to my goal.
Okay. Wait, let me try and get out of this now.
I love that.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
So I know that in terms of using this as therapy, it's.
So welcome to today's interview.
Oh, just hold on a second. Let's cancel that one out. Yeah, so I know that it's useful for. We spoke about, I know, in our telephone conversation. So weight loss, trauma, childhood trauma, maybe family dysfunction, and coping mechanisms that we use for that. Letting go of that. Any sort of lifehood stuff that's caused us to disassociate with ourselves, and where we need to, like Taryn and I were saying earlier, to reconnect in order to heal. So yeah, I think that's for a lot of us. I know Taryn and I mean, it's a part of the basis of why we also started Lockdown Open Up, and it's opening that up and finding ways to heal. And yeah, so I think this is a nice topic, because we all we've touched a lot on addiction and nutrition and those sorts of ways to look after ourselves. But this, using dance and movement and in a creative way, it's a really interesting. It's a nice thing to consider. So yeah. But I wanted to also ask, in terms of maybe different generations, would you deal differently with, say, for example, a child client, and then like my gran, for example, and I'm not just saying physically, but just because you're dealing with people's emotions and mental health, would that differ? I'm sure it would, and how?
So it would differ. Children, what's nice for children is that they can't sit and talk for an hour. They don't know how. They don't have the capacity for it at that point in time. So it offers a different way for them to work through their challenges. And children love to move. So it really does, it gives them an outlet to be creative, where so many areas of their lives at this point in time are taking creativity away. School is it's a very structured thing, and they are taught that they have to find the answer that the school is wanting from them, that the teacher or whoever it is wanting from them. They're wanting a specific answer, and the child has to find that specific answer rather than thinking creatively and finding their own answers, their own solutions to things. So they're being molded and formed into a specific box. So having creative outlets where they can play, where they can not have to sit and listen and conform. I think having more of those places to do that is really beneficial. And then in terms of dealing with someone like your grandmother, I've had elderly clients as well. I think one of the oldest I had was 67. And I used the same processes, but that specific client had a back problem, so she couldn't move. And so I used the same processes, but without the movement side. So I used it as more of a meditation style of therapy. So it's very much adjusted to the physical limitations of the person, whether they have some form of disability or they have full range of motion. It's very dependent on the person. But then the style of speaking to people, when it comes to therapy, things like respect is very important, whether it's a child or an adult. You know, we have to respect them and give them the space to feel held, to feel safe, and to feel that they can open up without judgment and with full acceptance. And that's what everybody needs. You know, a lot of the children I've seen, their struggles come from not feeling accepted for who they are. They feel like they have to achieve in order to be accepted by their parents or society or people around them. So just to be in session and have somebody there who can hold them in a space where they can completely be themselves and experience their emotions in a healthy way, that in itself is very powerful. And then adding on the movement side of it just brings a different element to the whole session, that they don't have to sit down for an hour. You know, things like, so psychology is very powerful, and it's a wonderful way of working with people, but it doesn't work for everybody. So this is an alternative that people can turn to in order to process things differently. And it works for everybody, for all different ages.
I think it must be such an interesting observation as well, as the observer, when you are, I mean, I guess, I don't know if you're assessing someone or a child, let's take for example, through their non-verbal communication, because I know that there's the whole, what's that saying, the one thing that could solve most of our problems is like dance, but that we can, you know, our bodies tell stories about ourselves, and that I suppose that maybe that's how the concept of dance therapy was born in a way. I mean, I don't know, I'm just assuming that we can tell a lot by a person's movements and nonverbal communication. And I know that a lot of the time I give off, doesn't matter how confident I come across in speech, but my body and the way I position myself even in personal communication can tell everything about what I really think, and I guess people who studied that stuff would be able to tell. But with children, I suppose when it comes to like childhood with or with adults with abuse and things like that, there's probably telltale signs. So yeah, and then also with things like if you've grown up in a a lifestyle where you've had to have where you've been vulnerable and you haven't been able to be assertive, I suppose, or you haven't had the opportunity to be assertive enough over a long period of time, therefore your self-esteem and confidence has been low, that's also going to affect how your freedom of movement and positioning, physical positioning in the world. Am I speaking a whole bunch of gibberish? I don't know, but that's how I associate, the whole understanding of it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Body language is a very big tell, and it's you can see a lot from how somebody moves, and even in terms of using the space, like you said. I've had clients with low self-esteem who would only move around the edges of the room and wouldn't come to the center of the room because that is a vulnerable space for them. To be front and center, even though it's just the two of us in the room, it's I had to physically move them into the center of the room for them to notice how uncomfortable they feel there.
Wow.
And they immediately wanted to move back to the edge of the room, the corner or the wall, and kind of be in their safe space and hide away, essentially. But slowly, through working with her, she was able to move closer and closer towards the middle of the room.
That's incredible.
That in itself is so powerful. Just having her observe herself, once I pointed it out and moved her from the wall to the center of the room and asking her how she feels there, it was a very different experience for her. And I said, feel how you feel now and notice how different it feels to how you felt just a second ago when you were, close to the wall. And she said she feels completely exposed. She feels vulnerable. She feels, nervous. And so it brought up a lot of things just in terms of where she was in the room.
That's insane. I've actually got goosebumps.
Yeah. Taryn, every time you and I know I keep using dancing a tiger as an example, and it's a bad one, but that's because that's when I felt most exposed physically, apart from when I've been naked. Not that I've been naked in public, but anyway. But Taryn, every time Taryn and I have been out dancing, we will always be on the outskirts, never in the middle. Always. Like, no, Taryn, come, get back out there, get out of there. She's like, no, come be in the middle. I'm like, no, I don't want to be in the middle. We'll always be on the outskirts so that we can A, escape if we need to, because that's where we feel safest, and B, just not be in the center of attention, even though we're generally loud and we profess to be these expressive people, but put us in the middle where we're forced, like stuck there, and now we have to be no, too vulnerable.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about it from the level of the mind, you can control how loud you are. You can control what it is that you're saying when you are loud, but you can't control what your body's doing. So, you're not aware of where you are being drawn to in the space or how you are moving within yourself. So it becomes a really powerful thing when you start to observe that within yourself and start to see your own patterns playing out and what it says. I mean, even in a typical dance class, you can see the dancers who are less experienced or less sure of themselves will immediately move to the back of the group or to the outskirts of the group. And those who are a little bit more comfortable with either themselves or the movement or just life in general, I suppose, will be the one standing in front and will lead the rest of the group because they're not having to watch all the time.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that can be told from just how we move within the world on a daily basis.
Like
And
always sitting at the back of the classroom. Like that was me. Never go to the front. Always go to the back. It's straight. Like the more you're talking about this, the more I'm like associating like my mental space in life. Like it is strange. Like front and center, no, definitely not. You know, like either in the like right at the back or somewhere in the corner. It's quite incredible, actually.
Interesting, because then you and me, you and I are the first people to be loud and speak up. But physically, put us in the front physically or in the middle, not happening. No.
Yeah.
Won't own that.
And Faine, I wanted to ask, and maybe you have answered this and I've missed it, but I know they say that trauma, when you've gone through trauma, it like remains in you like a memory, like a muscle memory. So now when you're doing this movement, your dance therapy, does that in some way release that muscle memory so that your body's no longer holding on to that physical muscle trauma? Because I know for me, from certain events that have happened in my life, if I have another traumatic event happen on top of that, my body actually completely seizes and goes back to my first traumatic incident. Now, through this movement, does that release those memories, and are you able to, obviously with the talk and the dance, completely like physically release those traumatic incidents? Is that what the dance helps with, is what I'm asking basically?
Yeah, so what it does is that those memories are very attached to a strong emotional charge, and it's that emotional charge that gets released from the body. So that gets stored in the body. So I often describe it like a pressure cooker, and it's sitting within your body. And every time you experience an emotion of some kind, whether it's a trauma or just anger in a moment or sadness, whatever it is, it all gets poured into that pressure cooker. And the lid's on very tightly, so it can't go anywhere. And the more that we experience throughout our lives, the fuller that pot becomes, until it eventually explodes. And it builds up, and we can kind of contain it for as long as we can, and then it eventually reaches a point where it spills over. And it usually spills over in, it's kind of when we've reached our last little straw or whatever you want to call it, and we just can't take any more. And then it comes out on the person who doesn't actually deserve all of it. So we'll become overly angry with someone who did the smallest thing wrong, and we'll become very reactive to things around us because of this buildup of emotion and trauma that's stored in our body. So what we're doing in the session essentially is taking the lid off the pot in a healthy way. Okay. So it's not just a case of taking the lid off and seeing what happens and seeing how everything kind of goes everywhere. It's taking it off in a very healthy, positive way that helps us to release the emotions, like you said, through movement, to reduce that pressure, to reduce that emotional charge. And as we do that, that's when our perspectives change. We don't feel as attached to those events anymore. We can see them from a little bit of a distance. Yeah. And we get to start to see the gifts in those experiences. As hard as they were, as challenging as they were, as traumatic as they were, when we start to release that emotional charge, we can start to see how we've actually benefited from those events.
Yeah.
And how we've become who we are today through them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Do you think this could be a good stepping stone for people who are maybe, I'm thinking especially for people in light of President Ramaphosa's State of the Nation address the other night, where he I'm glad, highlighted the victims of gender-based violence, and as shocking as that was, but for the survivors of gender-based violence, and I'm talking particularly about the women who've had their physical rights violated, so the survivors of rape and physical abuse, who maybe aren't ready to speak openly about it. And again, the stigma of shame and embarrassment, or for fear of being minimized, which is something that, we're on a personal mission on this platform to try and not get rid of, because I understand why people would find that difficult, but to at least create these safe spaces to be able to start opening up and trying to facilitate that environment. But maybe something like dance therapy is a good foundation or stepping stone for people who aren't quite there yet, to unlock those things deep down, and really painful, serious stuff that's to discount other hidden things that need to be unlocked. But do you think this could maybe be a good stepping stone, or maybe to work in line with other forms of therapy?
Very much so. It's a very useful form of therapy for things like physical traumas, sexual traumas, that kind of thing, because it allows us to process from our bodies. What happens is that when someone has had some form of sexual trauma or something, a physical trauma, something like that, what often happens is we move into our heads to try and gain control and to feel safe, and we disconnect from our bodies, because that's where the trauma took place. That's where the emotion is strongest. So to access that emotion in a way that we don't have to talk through every tiny detail. It's very difficult to verbalize something like that. So to use our bodies, to live a healthy way, we have to reconnect with mind, body, and emotions. So we're not just living in our minds and disconnecting from our bodies, which can create so many other challenges and issues like weight gain or eating disorders, or so many different things can come from trauma as a result. And so using movement to process, like you were saying earlier, it's a form of expression. So we can use our bodies to move through the emotional charge around those experiences. And a lot of my clients have had some form of sexual trauma in their childhood, or it happened many years ago, and they've repressed the memories, and they've had so many challenges as a result, even just in their personal relationships that they're experiencing now. Challenges with intimacy and all sorts of things like that, which they don't often connect to being, or they don't often see as being connected to that trauma, or fears with commitment. Things like that people don't realize are as a result of those experiences. So it's a very useful way to use talk therapy and movement to process out those emotions. Again, it helps them to release that emotional charge, and then to find a different way to be in the world. And one of the biggest struggles that people have is to be seen.
Yeah.
And especially for someone who's had some form of sexual or physical trauma, they don't want to be seen, because that's when their subconscious mind would tell them that they're most unsafe, even though it might have happened many years ago, or if it's still happening. They're going into their heads is one way for them to feel safe, because they feel in some form of control. but to reconnect with the body, you start to see that it's not an unsafe place to be. It's not an unsafe place to connect with. And so that reconnection is really important, because they're not living as their full selves. They aren't experiencing everything that they can experience because they've disconnected. So it's a process to bring them back to feeling comfortable within themselves and accepting themselves. And from there, things start to shift and change around them.
Sure.
That's great.
Darren.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's like hit so many. Yeah, I think, I mean, I speak openly about most of my stuff. Try not to air my dirty laundry. But yeah, I mean, I through my, I mean, I've had my fair amount of dysfunction growing up, but through all my stuff, I disconnected from my inner emotions and feelings early on. And to the point where I think I was so oblivious to it, and I got so good at detaching from myself in order to cope with sorts of things. And as a result, now in adulthood, it's only in the last year and a bit that I've realized how desperately I need to reconnect with myself in order to actually feel free and to have like a sense of true meaning, if that makes sense, and to be like true to myself. But when like that journey to getting back to myself, like the not the real me, because I mean I hope I am being the real me, but that we talk about authenticity, and it's that connecting with unlocking all those inner things that, you know, those inner struggles and turmoil, whatever the conflicts that we have inside ourselves that we never dealt with before, and connecting with that. It's quite hard. So I mean, this is something that I'd love to try, because sometimes, like, when we can talk about things until we're blue in the face, and we can write songs and we can use words and that sort of thing, and that's great. I mean, it's good, and more of us need to do that, and we need to do more of it. But sometimes maybe doing something like this is sometimes you don't need to necessarily verbalize things, and there's things that words can't express, and that the unwritten word is sometimes you know. I'd definitely be interested to try.
Yeah, I'd love to know what came out like through my movement. It would be so fascinating for me. It's like it's my mind's ticking away here.
Yeah, because I know that I mean, I don't know if it's a bit too personal to give up, but I mean, whatever. Me being intimate with someone and being in a physical relationship with somebody, I'm terrible. I cannot connect Kira's mind and body. I mean, I've been told this before, that it's something that in my recent months have come to realize I need to work on that. My whole life, as soon as I'm intimate with someone, I disconnect, and it's like means nothing. Yeah, and that's a direct result of that's how I've coped my whole life, is detaching my mind from my body. Don't know what that's about, really. Well, I do kind of, but I don't know if there's like an incident, or I mean, I just think it's a collective result of, you know, just how I've always been subconsciously. But yeah, it's kind of sad. Like,
I'm actually dealing with that right now in coaching that I'm doing with someone. They're helping me through. I'm doing like a program, and it will be fascinating. I'm actually going to bring it up with her, like joint, like while I'm doing her program, to maybe do this like as well, to see how it all unfolds, because I have the same detachment, like, but not just well, I suppose intimacy can be more than just a partner. It can be your friendships and your family and everything too. Like I also do that. I do the detachment and then the self-sabotage, and then, you know, and again, what Kira said, I don't know if mine's from an incident either, or a collective, you know, group of moments or words or things that my body has held on to, not just my mind, like my body as well, because I can feel it. I can feel when I'm in an uncomfortable position. I can feel when I'm most relaxed, like, you know, and how I am versus if I'm uncomfortable, how I speak, how I react, how I respond, versus when I'm in a comfortable space, how I speak, react, and respond to people and life in general. So this would be, I mean, I'm definitely, like, this is something I would definitely like to do. So having said that, how are you managing this now via like lockdown? Have you taken it digitally? Are you able to see people? I mean, how are you?
Good question. Yeah. How do you incorporate
how are you incorporating it in a digital space? If we wanted to now come and see you, like how do we do this now, you know?
Yeah. So I'll get to that in a minute. I just first want to say that that's one of the common experiences that I've heard from women, is that they disconnect from their bodies, especially when it comes to intimacy.
Yeah.
So if you aren't comfortable in your own body, you're not going to be comfortable with sharing that intimate space with somebody else. So it's a really, really common concern that women have. Yeah. And so you've hit on something really strong there, that is, you know, it's such a collective experience that that we can all benefit from reconnecting with our bodies, so that we can be more present in the intimate space. And so it's a wonderful way to do that. And I am doing sessions online. So whether via Skype or Zoom or even WhatsApp video call, we can do it in digitally on online platforms. And as long as the person I'm with has a safe space within their home, so they're not being bombarded by kids or partners or, you know, somebody else wanting their attention, they can actually take that for themselves. Okay. And have that quiet space where they can connect with themselves, they can speak freely and don't feel like they have to kind of be careful with what they say in case somebody can hear through the door. Yeah. So just to make sure that they feel comfortable and safe within the space that they are in at home, then we can make a plan.
And then tell me, if they're not, are you able to see people on a one-on-one basis during this time and lockdown and regulations and everything?
So I haven't been up to this point, but as things open up, we will be able to in person again. Yeah.
Faine, so on that note, if people would like to get in touch with you for any consultations or even just to find out more information, what's the best way to do that? And also, people, you can message us on here and we'll link you up, and we'll post the link to Faine's Facebook page and everything as well. But so email address, website, anything like that?
Email address. The one I'm using at the moment is faine@heartspacehealing.coza, and that's heart as in your heart space. And then my phone, so WhatsApp, I'm available on WhatsApp all the time. Phone calls, my number is 073 411 6793. If anyone is wanting to contact me to chat more or to set up a session. My websites, I have 2 websites. It's heartspacehealing.coza and danceTherapy.coza.
Awesome. And do you go to people's houses, or do they come to you, or how does it work? When in the ideal world, outside of lockdown, if it's not online?
Yeah, we're having to do a lot of adjustments at the moment. But before lockdown, I would either meet someone at a space that I rent, and that's a Pilates studio in Bergfleet. Okay. Or I can go to their homes if it is easier for everyone. And then I also, for other people who don't have a safe space at home and can't get to the studio, I do have a therapy space at my home where we can do a little bit of movement, because it's not a very big space, but we can use the space for therapy.
Yeah, so it's obviously in person for Cape Townians and anyone else outside of Cape Town. Well, either drive to Cape Town or ask about doing an online consultation. So if you're in the Americas or Joburg, there is that. Or maybe Faine knows of someone else in the other countries or cities. But yeah, get hold of Faine. I think it's a great thing, and I think Taryn and I must do Taryn, maybe you and I should do like a joint thing with Faine and China.
Yeah,
we can do a little review.
Yeah, I'm very keen to see what comes about from movement. It's I really like it. It has definitely piqued my interest. I'd be fascinated to see what it unlocks.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Faine. This was a really, really great conversation.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's lots more of it to be had.
Thank you so much, ladies. It's been a really nice chat.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.